always, just wanting to pivot into new things. I don't want to stay just in one place.
Right.
But the goal really is, ultimately, man, for me personally, is to make opportunities for the crew. At the very least, there's enough going around, enough happening that there's opportunities and doors that open that if they want to go in and take advantage of the opportunities, that they're there for them.
All right, that's what's up. Hey, welcome to the Black Label Exchange. Man, listen, we got an awesome, dope-ass interview today. I'm telling you, like, y'all want to lock in, definitely, and check this episode out. This is our episode 4, and we here with DJ EFN, Crazy Hood General, Drink Champs General, Mixtape General, Dade County General. Man, the General shit keeps going and going and going, but he's not in the military, so he's street certified. And guess what, man? Not only is the DJ EFN is incredible pioneer, somewhat of hip hop pioneer down in South Florida, but he's also a big brother of mine. He's family, and man, he gave us his time to come down to West Kendall to go ahead and shoot this interview down here in West Kendall. So listen, let's get into it. Hey, so you got your host, Winnick, aka Kadon, got my other host,
Big Tito, aka DB.
All right, and we're gonna rock it with EFN. Hey, let's get started. You know what I mean? So what's up, big bro? What's up, EFN?
Thank you for having me, guys. Thank you for having me.
Man, listen, we appreciate you.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Yes, sir.
You know? So yeah, so E, man, just want to get right into it, my brother. Just want to kind of start from the beginning. You know, kind of explain to us, where you come from, your background, and then lead us into, how you got into the music business, and most importantly, how did you start the Crazy Hood organization?
And he went super broad and broader. Like in the beginning, my mom was in the hospital. You know what I'm saying? Like, or we could go even further back than that. I mean, I'll try to give you some condensed version of in the beginning.
I mean, let's start out like this. So where you from? Give us a background where you from.
But I was born in Los Angeles. Mm-hmm. Parents Cuban, migrated from Cuba. My dad came over here to Miami in the 80s. He's a veteran, Marine, Vietnam veteran. Oh. Cuban, came to Miami in the 80s. People's cocaine cowboy era. Let's just put it like that. You know what I'm saying?
Okay, yeah.
My parents had separated around that time, but they were trying to work it out. So my dad was like, telling us to come through. So I was coming back and forth, Miami, LA, because it wasn't working out between my parents. So I would come over here to Miami. And I remember my first impression of Miami was a summer. My dad got a crib in Country Walk.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Right when they had just built Country Walk.
Right.
And I just thought to myself, I'm in the Everglades, like it's raining. It was like the summer, the monsoon rains.
Yeah,
and coming from LA, the weather out there is dry, it's cool. And I'm like, what is this foreign place I'm in? But whatever. Like I said, my mom and dad, they didn't work it out. So we were going back and forth a lot to the point where it was like 4 to 5 times that I had moved back and forth.
Damn.
Which is pretty wild. I was like, I don't know, like 4 or 5 years old like that. And it just was, it was inconsistent. And finally, my mom just stayed in Miami one of the times. And then we ended up living in Spanish Trace on 107th and Kendall Drive.
Okay, right.
And so, at first, it was rough, coming out here and just leaving my friends in LA. The life I knew in LA, I had family in LA and everything. I still got family in LA.
I mean, but how old were you when you left LA exactly? Do you remember?
The thing is, we moved around so much in that era that it's like blurry to me. But okay. I could tell you that I remember I did 5th grade out here. And from that point on, I stayed. Gotcha. So 5th grade on.
So that's like what, like 9, 10 years old? 10 years old, pretty much? Okay.
Gotcha. Yeah, and I still got friends, people down with Crazy that I met in 5th grade, like my boy Donuts.
Okay, right.
And yeah, so and then from there I went to Arvida Junior High, and then I went to Killian, but I got kicked out of Killian.
Damn.
They was trying to send me to MacArthur.
Man,
yeah.
Some of the stories.
And my mom, she took me to she went to the school board. My mom took me to a psychologist, and the psychologist was like, "Yo, if this kid goes to this school, I don't know what's gonna happen with him,
Gotcha.
And I didn't want to go to MacArthur. So my mom went to the school board with the psychologist, and they worked it out. I wanted to be in the military. So they ended up saying, well, we'll send him to Sunset but he got to do ROTC.
Okay.
And my best friend at the time, Humphrey,
Right.
who went to Arvida with me, he was in Sunset. So
I ended up doing the ROTC.
I ended up doing ROTC and stuff, but I got kicked out of ROTC.
Oh, okay.
Because so my dad was in the Marines. He was a Vietnam vet. We didn't have the best relationship, but my attachment to my dad was military, war. So I grew up loving war movies, G.I. Joe, imagining I was in a war. My dad gave me all his Vietnam stuff. So like I would look at the stuff and be like, yo, this shit was in a war. Like as a little kid, you know, it's just like the boots had dirt on the bottom. I don't know if the dirt was from Vietnam, but I was like, yo, this dirt. He was in the trenches with this, you know. I was like, oh man, you know, like so I thought of that and I was like, I'm gonna be a Marine, I'm gonna be ROTC. When Desert Storm happened with Iraq, I wanted to like volunteer, but I was too young. And so all that, but once I got into ROTC and it was like the discipline and the marching and they was twirling the guns and I was like, nah, I just want to give me a gun and let me go to war. That's in my mind what I wanted to do. So I realized quickly ROTC wasn't my thing because I had these little dudes telling me to like salute and about face, and I'm like, oh, fuck you, bro. Like, and in that time frame in Sunset is where I start to meet all the people that become Crazy Hood.
Right.
You know, and what we have in common is the love of music, specifically hip hop. And this goes back to like, you know, as far as I can remember, it's more so in junior high, you know, but when rap music starts creeping in, I'm listening to all kinds of music.
Right. Let me ask you, what was there a particular artist that like first sparked you to make you like fall in love with hip hop, or is it, you know, was it just the culture in general?
The thing is, I was listening to all kinds of, and I want to say rap music at first because I didn't identify it as a culture yet. So I'm listening to rap music, but it wasn't until NWA hit that I was like, because till then I hadn't heard rap that had an emotion that triggered an emotion in me. Like, yo, these guys are scary. Like, yo, these guys, something's wrong in Compton, you know?
Right.
So it was NWA and then Public Enemy on the other side of it, which I feel like they're the same style, but from different sides of the spectrum, you know? And then Public Enemy did the same thing. They evoked an emotion out of me. They taught me stuff that I didn't know. And so I was like, man, this is deep. This is powerful. And then as I'm starting to get more into the rap music and I'm learning now about different artists, then I'm hearing the words hip hop and then I'm linking with people. I was a skater in junior high. So I remember hanging out with other skaters who happened to also be graffiti writers. And I remember hearing the words like hip hop around these skaters. And I'm like, hip hop? Like, I was like, what kind of music? I was like, oh, I listen to rap, I listen to this, I listen to that. And I was like, what do you, I listen to hip hop. And I'm like, hip hop? And the dude started breaking it down. Like, yeah, it's, you know, break down the elements of hip hop. You know, this is what we do. You know, I do graffiti, da, da, da. And I'm like, okay. And then that's when it, you know, it all dawned on me. And then in high school is when that really, you know, I really just dove deep into hip hop and I realized it was the music of my generation. Because growing up watching those war movies, most of them like either be Vietnam or the Korean War, like watching MASH, remember MASH on TV? Or watching World War II movies. They had the music associated with that time, you know, whether it be like in the 1940s or in Vietnam, it was like the 1960s and 70s. And so, you know, I kind of like understood and I applied the music to the time frame and the people. And then when I'm hearing, you know, when I'm getting into hip hop, I'm like, yo, wait, this is the music that's gonna be applied to my generation. Like this is our soundtrack, you know, like our soundtrack. So I was like, man, I want to get in on this. And I realized it was in its early stages nationally, but more so in Miami, that it was really in its early stages as a local scene. And you know, I'm already listening to 2 Live Crew, Poison Clan, you know, everything, you know, everything local and everything abroad. But that's when I start to get the idea of like, man, you know, this is something special, and we're seeing history. And in the beginnings, I'm just like, let me just be a fan of the music and go and support it as much as I can locally and be a part, like see history as it's happening. Go to these early venues that we're gonna hear about later. Like I already had a vision or understanding. In the future, we're gonna be talking about the Pac Jam. We're talking about you know, this other club or this other place, and the first time so and so performed, or when this happened, and I wanted to be there in person, and I wanted to be supportive, and that's why I started doing it. And then that's when the idea was like, okay, I want to be more than a fan. I want to actually be a contributor to the scene.
So did you have an idea at that time, like what type of contribution that you wanted to you know?
Nah, so now you're diving into like, so the original, just to give you a little backstory, before their CHP, me and my boys, we had a crew called KPB, which was kind of a joke people threw on us, and we just took it on. Because we KPB because we would play a lot of basketball at Sugarwood Park. It's in Kendall, but then we would go around, and I'm sure everybody did this, and play ball at different courts in different neighborhoods, and always get into fights and shit. Because so people be like, man, that's them Kendall boys, them Kendall Park boys.
Okay.
So that's what and I was like, all right, cool. Like we KPB, Kendall Park boys. And so that's the first iteration of a lot of people that you see now in CHP. And it was like 20 of us in the crew. So now we're getting toward the end of high school. And I wasn't really good in terms of like schooling. Like I'm not a book study guy. Like that's not. I need to learn visually, and creatively. So I'm just getting by, and to graduate. And in fact, I graduated night school, which my mom was so pissed because my diploma said adult education.
Oh, wow.
When I brought it to her, all proud, and she opened it. She threw that shit at me. The fucking adult education, and I didn't get to. I didn't get to walk. I didn't get to go. I got arrested before grad night. They didn't let me go to grad night. So my mom was really having a time with me. Right. But it was in that senior year, towards the end of the year, that I was like, I came up with Crazy Hood Productions, the idea of starting a production company. Now I wanted to be a DJ, but I didn't have turntables. I didn't know how I was gonna get turntables. It was expensive as hell. Right. But I always gravitated towards seeing the DJ. Like I always. In hip hop, the DJ is the pinnacle. Right. So I gravitated towards seeing the videos and the DJ in the background. Like, man, he don't have to be in the forefront, but he's still like the guy, or the girl.
Still pushing.
So I knew I wanted to do that. I just at the time financially, I didn't see a way I was gonna get turntables, and I was making pause tapes on double cassette tape decks, hand me down stereo.
That's old school style.
Yeah.
Right there.
So how did you start accumulating the equipment? As you continued,
the pause tape stuff was all hand-me-down equipment. Okay. That I was getting stereo equipment.
So all hand-me-down stuff.
Yeah, and then every so often, my dad come through. He felt guilty because of our relationship, so I was like trying to get some out of him. Like, yo, can you cop this? And I think he helped me get the DJ starter kit in the back of the Source magazine. Okay. Which was the worst setup, but for me, just having 2 turntables, a mixer, and headphones, and a couple records, man, that's it. That's all I needed in life.
That inspired you.
I had them in my apartment in Spanish Trace, and I remember I had one little crate. Remember the Peaches, the record store? I had bought the little wooden Peaches record crate, and I had it half full. It was like 5 or 10 records, or maybe even less. And I remember, man, one day I'm gonna fill this crate up. I'm gonna have that many records, and that was the beginning of me DJing. But I knew that I had a long way before really going out as a DJ. Yeah. So starting the production crew was more about like, all right, I'm gonna organize the people I got around me. We got a vision to put on for the city and contribute in some way, and then just figuring out, okay, so if I can't go out as a DJ yet, I could surely put together a group or artists and develop artists and try to get them in the studio. So that was one thing I started doing, and we could do events because that was the one thing back then in the early '90s. There wasn't a lot of hip hop events. You either went to a house party, a warehouse party, but the clubs wasn't really doing it like that. So any hip hop party that happened, house party or whatever, everybody around the city that was a hip hop head or that listened to hip hop would come through. And that's hard for people to fathom now because I tell people, I try to describe it. There literally was a few thousand hip hop heads in the city that were real diehard, a part of this hip hop community that were break dancers and were graffiti artists and were MCs and DJs or just people that were diehard into it that you would see at all these clubs. And we would go to, there was a spot called the Zoo in Coconut Grove. There was dudes from Killian that did it. They were homies of mine. And then there was the dudes in Wynwood, DJ Raw and the Knockout Posse that would do the park jams at Roberto Clemente Park that Zulu Nation were like security at. And Zulu Nation would do something. Then there was an abandoned movie theater in North Miami called the Underground Compound where they used to do events. And so these are like, you would go there and you would see all the hip hop heads from North Miami to South Miami. And it was like, a few thousand people. The diehard heads.
And I'm pretty sure, like you say, it's a small world, so you would run into a lot of
you knew each other by face, but there was also this weird, and I'm bouncing around, but there was this weird like dynamic and beef that I'm sure you guys understand because it's like a Miami thing, and it was the same in the hip hop community. it was North Miami versus South Miami. They
Right.
didn't get along.
Right.
So the MCs from North Miami and the producers and the DJs and they didn't respect one another. They always ran into. So it wasn't necessarily like beef on site, but it was tension always.
Right.
And it would happen on the dance floor with the B-boys and B-girls.
Mm-hmm.
It would happen with the MCs battling, the DJs battling, and that was that tension that was there. But again, it was just a few thousand people. And I tell people, it's like, back then, it was like almost like the goth kids. You know, when you was in school, you knew who the goth kids were.
For sure.
They were all grouped up in the corner.
Wearing all black.
That's how hip hop heads were.
Right.
And it was also had to do with this influx of New Yorkers that came in, you know, dressing like the hip hops at the time, which was New York style. So that was like the uniform. But me and my crew, what we really were trying to do is set ourselves apart from them, because even the cats that weren't from New York would claim New York and would try to have New York accents. Because that was the thing. And even in the movie Atlanta, they had that issue in Atlanta too.
Right.
You know what I'm saying? So ATL is a movie, right? So we were always saying, nah, we're going to rep from Miami. We're going to put on from Miami. We're going to talk about Miami. And it was not the cool thing to do in the local hip hop community.
Right.
But we were doing it. And there was a couple cats like Mother Superior, who I talk about a lot, and different artists that were trying to do it. But a lot of people were still very like New York heavy.
Man, the first time I speaking of Mother Superior, the first time I heard of her or even saw her was on Richmond Park. They had some event and she jumped on stage rapping, you know, hip hop style. You know, half the crowd was like, and you know, some people like, you know what I mean? But definitely, especially for back then, you know, Miami had its own certain sound. So I can imagine for the people that, you know, really more into the traditional style of hip hop, that, you know, it would be kind of pushed to the side, or, you know.
Yeah.
You know.
Yeah, I mean that's the thing. That's why there was that weird division between the cats that would say that, you know, hip hop is a New York phenomenon, and they would just go to these hip hop parties, like boom bap, let's call them, and then you had everybody else that would. And you know, we had this huge
the Yomais back in
that's what they call them. Yeah, they would call them the Yomais. And so, you know, but that was like true to heart Miami folks, you know what I'm saying? That would listen to Miami bass and listen to what they consider gangster rap, that they didn't consider that hip hop because they looked at the word hip hop as a New York thing.
Yeah, because, you know, in Miami, we kind of like gravitate towards like the West Coast music. I remember growing up, people playing Spice One.
Yeah,
and, like,
we just had Spice One on Drink Champ.
Okay, it's like work. So, you know, I guess, you know, the
NWA,
you got palm trees down here. You know, there's some similarity.
Ghetto Boys.
Right. You know what I mean?
Going.
Yeah. So down south, a lot of people kind of gravitate toward
like the Southern,
the
West Coast and Southern rap, and Midwest too. The Midwest when Bone Thugs came out. But I wanted to ask you, like, okay, so going through all those experiences, right? How did that lead from you going through all those different experiences to actually throwing your first party as on the Crazy Hood, or putting your first event together? I remember you had a warehouse party.
Right down the street, 2 blocks away, at a car body shop. So out the gate, that was the only thing that I could do immediately.
Well, was that your first party?
Yeah,
like
that was set us in
official?
motion as doing something. You know, because we didn't have artists yet. I wasn't DJing yet. But before that, like right around that same time period, actually, another thing I did because again, when I started the crew, one of the things that when I told the crew, this is what I want to do, I want to get in the music business. I want to contribute to the local scene. Some of my friends, they kind of laughed at it because they were like, bro, we're in Kendall. We don't got no connection. Miami's not respected on the hip hop map on a national scale. We don't got no industry down here, and you got no industry connections. Like it doesn't. That's like a long shot dream. Right. And they weren't wrong, but I was like, we, you know, I had a vision, and I knew, like, I had a drive, and we're gonna figure it out as we go along. So the first thing that I could do is just throw a jam, because I knew that was how to contribute to the local scene immediately. Right. People, the scene needed events to happen. Right. So I had I started working kind of like an intern at a local record label. That it was some guys that I knew that put out a vinyl record, and back then, just being able to put out a vinyl single was a big deal. Because it means you went through all the steps. You went into the studio, you recorded, you mixed, you mastered, you pressed up, you released. That's incredible for local people to do it. So I said, man, when I saw that, I was like, yo, can I just get down? Let me just shadow you guys. And they were a little older, and they were like, yeah, come through. And I was like, their intern. And I went to events with them. I went to when they opened up at shows. I went with them. And so that started giving me a little bit of like knowledge of you know, some of the game of what's going on.
Yeah.
And then when I did the party, the guys in that crew, they had DJs already. They had like their own. They had a couple DJs down with them.
Okay.
And so I had them DJ the party.
Okay.
I had some homies that went to Arvida that ended up going to Killian. My homie Tori. I don't remember where he ended up. Oh, he had a group called All the King's Men in Killian. And so I don't know how I stayed in contact with him, but I had him perform. Like so immediately I'm having the DJs, obviously local DJs. Then I'm putting on performances, local performances, which wasn't normal at jams because people didn't want to hear local artists.
Right.
They just wanted to hear music.
Yeah.
So I'm like, nah, we're gonna showcase some local talent. So I put local artists on, and then we needed a space. So my homeboy Lewis, his dad owned a car body shop down the street, and he's like, look, they leave on Fridays and they don't come back till Monday. So we could go in there, clean, like as soon as they leave, we clean up the spot, move the cars, broken cars out the way, and we got a warehouse.
Well, hold on. You guys are doing this without no permission. You're not even asking the owner of the building.
No,
you can throw a
we
party.
didn't ask nobody.
So you snuck it through.
Only the son was in on it. He was down with us. So
It's like when the parents leave for vacation. You
Yeah.
go to the
I mean,
Go to the house party.
yo, it was
Instead
a
of
little
house
bit
party,
wild.
warehouse party.
It was a little wild that we were gonna take over this warehouse like that and throw a jam.
yeah.
And you know, so we made flyers. I remember that's the first time that you see CHP on a flyer, and it was bring your own drinks. We were serving soda, like we went to Winn Dixie and bought those
Check
big
soda?
ass. I don't know how many liters those.
Was it
those
checks?
The
Was
Winn
it checks?
Dixie, yeah. We bought a bunch of those.
The hood soda.
Yeah, we wasn't even serving liquor, so we're like, if you want to drink, you gotta bring your own stuff.
It's like $1 for 3.
Yeah. I had Humphrey working security, which we opened the big garage door and then we put a big piece of plywood to kind of make a doorway.
Yeah, I remember that.
And then they had like a little second floor loft, and so we had the DJ up there. And then boom, and then we passed those flyers out, and those flyers went viral because
I was going to ask you. So, since that was the first official CHP party, right?
Mhm.
How long did it take to start? Like, when did you notice that you were gaining a little ground momentum and getting the following?
Well, let me finish the party because it's a big part of how everything moves. So the flyers go out, and this is how, like I said, the community was. There wasn't enough events to go to, so anything that was hip hop, these people would go to. Anybody would go to. So these flyers went from Homestead to Hialeah and Broward, and then all of a sudden the day comes, and you went there. It was like
swole.
thousands of people, like you know, from all over the place, you know. And
swole.
but then unfortunately, what happened is
shit went left.
it's inviting everybody. You got some gang members show up, and then you got these little crews and people who got beef. And a shootout broke out right outside the warehouse. The party was going great. Yeah. And then a shootout breaks out, and then they start running around the warehouse shooting at each other.
Whoa.
So the shooting sounded crazy inside. And then I told my homeboy Humphrey, who was running security, I said, yo, because everybody started trying to run into and I didn't want the gunman, or I don't know how many it was, to get into the warehouse. And then who knows what happens in there, bro. So I'm like, shut that motherfucking garage door down. And my boy's like, he don't know what to do. Everybody's trying to run in. And he grabs the door, he kicks the plywood, and he like goes to bring it down with all his weight. And I remember it hit a girl trying to get in, boom, right in her head, which I ended up knowing later on in life. It was a friend of ours. Boom, it bounced off her head. And I'm yo, close that. And then he like goes up and he comes down, wham!
Let me add that to that, because when he closed that door after it bounced on the door,
see, he was it. So,
I slid. I'm trying to get in too, because they was shooting. I saw the whole shit go down. So I slid trying to get in, and I saw Humphrey when he bounced off her head. But when he went back up, like, maybe I could slide in there. Man, Humphrey, I don't know if he pulled her in or kicked her out. Yeah. But when he slammed it, I literally slid right into the door. Bam! Like, damn.
Oh, you hit the door.
I hit the door. Right. Yeah, I slid into the door. Bam! And then TC was like, Winnie, over here. He ducked behind the car, you know what I mean? My brother was inside already. But I'll never forget that day when Humphrey slammed the damn door on him.
And then I was on
I
was on the loft and I was screaming at my boy, yo, shut.
Yeah, I can hear him.
Everybody,
you can hear him from outside. I can hear you from outside.
Afterwards, people said they thought I had a gun because I was going, shut the door down. So then you see, there's a picture that you see people just like on top of each other.
Wow.
Trying to lay down from gunshots, but they thought it was me shooting. So somebody ended up getting shot, went to the hospital, the cops showed up. Yeah. And then the cops were like, yo, if we ever see this CHP thing on a flyer, they gave us a pass though. We're gonna lock you guys up. Right? And luckily nobody died. Yeah. If not, it would have been a whole different thing.
Right.
And then the cops kind of realized that it was just, gang members and some dudes. It had nothing to do really with us. But you know how it goes. That became an infamous party. So when everybody went back to school, like, yo, was you at that party? That party was wild, And it was like a good thing that it happened. Right. And that's kind of like a version of going viral. And then the name CHP kind of like was already starting to ring from that point on.
That's amazing right there.
It's crazy because so from that perspective, right? Throwing the parties and things of that nature. Now, how did the whole mixtape thing come about with the music? Like when you started getting serious with the music and started putting the mixtapes together,
right, under
the CHP brand.
So, right before I started doing mixtapes, and obviously I get turntables, and I end up getting Technique turntables, which I wasn't gonna start doing anything serious as a DJ until I had Technique.
Okay.
Right. Before that, I had the starter kit from the Source. Those are Gemini belt drive turntables. I wasn't gonna go out publicly with those.
So they're pretty much garbage turntables, the first one?
Yeah, the belt drive. You go like this and it goes slow,
okay.
So it took a minute for me to get my techniques and then feel comfortable spinning on them and doing stuff. And in between that time, I put together, Drain had a crew, better said, called Poetic Symbols. And they were the only guys I knew that rhymed. And Drain could sing, he could rhyme. Yeah. He's mad talented. I'm like, come on, man, let's do this group together. And I don't even know how I financed it, but I was like, I'll take you guys in the studio. One thing that I did do is, so I realized at Miami-Dade, they gave, you get studio, if you take studio courses, you get free studio time. Right. So I told my whole crew, let's start taking MIDI studio classes so we could get this free studio time. So that's really the way that we were kind of financing. We would pay the fee for the classes, which was nothing compared to real studio. Right. And then you had a certain amount of hours you could be in the studio with an engineer because it was a teacher.
Right. See, a lot of people, especially a lot of maybe younger or newer artists, they don't realize like now you can have a small budget and get all kinds of recording.
You can record on your phone.
Right.
Yeah. Then you had to go to the studio. Yeah. So that's, I got the guys in the studio. I kind of made sense of what I would see. I would read a lot of magazines, a lot of articles, read articles about Luke, about Ruthless Records, about Master P. And I started piecing together my own model of how to do business. And I get the guys in the studio, I do their bio pictures, I put their demo together, and I'm like, I'm gonna shop their demo. And so I do that with them. And then after that with the Alliance, which is a whole other part of the story. But while I'm getting Poetic Symbols together, this whole time, the way that we got music, because we didn't have in Miami commercial radio that had played hip hop in LA, Atlanta, or New York. Right. We had very limited mix shows that played hip hop. It just wasn't consistent. It was mostly pirate radio, which I started to spin in pirate radio. Right. And then mixtapes. Yeah. And so most of the mixtapes I got were coming from New York. There was this one centralized mixtape distributor in Miami called the Hip Hop Connection, which a lot of people don't know. He was one of the biggest mixtape distributors in the world. Wow. And I don't even think a lot of these guys in New York will give him credit, but he was one of the biggest mixtape distributors in the world to the point where he got raided by the feds. Wow. Damn. Because it was bootlegging technically. Yeah. He got raided, they froze his ass. They treated him like he was Bin Laden. They raided his crib with guns, they froze his assets. Yeah. And so he was this dude, you would beep him, and then he would meet you at a mall. He would have days that he'd be at a Dayland Mall or a Color Ridge Mall. He was all over the city, and he come look like a drug dealer. He had a case, and he'd be like, stay there. And he had a menu, what mixtape you want, and then you'd buy it. And so we would get these mixtapes, and I'm like, this is the way we heard all the new underground music that was popping. And he had also DJs from the West Coast, mixtape DJs. So, and my taste was from everywhere because my roots are from LA. Yeah. You know what I'm saying? I'm living in Miami, so I grew up on Poison Clan, Two Live Crew, and everything else. Right. So my love of hip hop is vast. It's not just New York centric, but I really want lyrics and a certain production coming out of Miami, but repping the South. Right. So I see these mixtapes and I'm like, man, these mixtapes would be the perfect vehicle for promoting, my artist or or my brand or whatever. And we don't have radio like that doing it. So I'm like, this is a lane that there was nobody doing mixtapes in Miami consistently.
Right. It's like undervalued.
Yeah, so I'm like, I think I could do this. This makes sense. And then, that's when I finally got my techniques. And now I'm starting to DJ clubs. And I'm starting to get more confident as a DJ, get my name out. Because CHP was first before EFN, before DJ EFN. And then now DJ EFN is coming on the scene. And then we open up our store. So there's a lot of things start transpiring around the same time where that confidence is there. And then, I started doing the mixtapes, man. And that mixtapes, I saw that lane wide open and started doing it.
Started putting the mixtapes. And also, you also got into the marketing and promotional side of the music industry as well, too. CHP Crazy Hood.
Right, because when we started to, the dream of anybody that gets in the music business, like, I'm going to put together, I'm going to do, go in the studio, I'm going to make records, and we're gonna have a hit record, and we're gonna sell platinum, and that's it. We made it. You think once you get in the studio, I'm definitely going platinum, right? That's what everybody thinks.
I mean, you should feel like
that's the dream, like I'm gonna have. You look at the video, I'm gonna have that video, and I'm gonna go platinum. So we, I get in the studio with the guys. We don't go anywhere. Definitely not platinum. So I quickly realized, so either this dream is done, or the mission statement, which is contribute to the local scene, put on for the city, doesn't have to be limited just to the artist part of it, So I'm like, okay, we got a brand, we could do more with this brand. But now financially as a crew, we didn't have a lot of finance. Now, what I started doing early on, to backtrack a little, is I started to have these weekly meetings with the team. I was like, look guys, we're not gonna be like the average teenagers trying to do this. We're gonna be militant in our ways. Again, going back to the whole Army military stuff, I'm like, we're gonna have meetings, and if you show up late to the meetings, you gotta either pay or you gotta do push-ups. You know what I'm saying? And so everybody came on time, and then every month we had a monthly dues. It was like, I think when we started, maybe it was $20.
Okay.
I said, get it how you can get it. Because $20
back then was a lot of money back then.
Some didn't have jobs.
A lot of money back then.
So,
$20.
And then I said, everybody had to put in work. So it's like, you have to go out every week, at least one day out the week. Everybody that comes to the meeting has to have been out and passed out flyers, put up posters, gone to the flea market and left some flyers down. Like, you had to have done something that towards the cause. And so that was something we was doing consistently.
See that right there, those are the type of moves that kind of like separated y'all from the average, because
it did.
Guarantee most people's not looking at it like that. It's a hobby, or but for you to approach it like, hey, if you're late to the meeting, like that's how you have to treat it, like as if you're going to go work a job.
Well, that's where the discipline comes in. Right. It looked like you established a sense of discipline within the crew.
And I lost people in the crew because there was some guys in the crew that were like, man, I just want to go to a party and have fun and fuck bitches.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? I ain't trying to do no fucking push-ups or listen to you.
Or put some work in.
Like, who the fuck are you? Like, they look like, most people respected it, from the beginning, but after a while, they just kind of got like, I ain't really signed up for this.
Right.
I just want to have fun. Others were like, nah, we believe in the vision, so we'll stick to it. And before I lose my train of thought, because you were talking about the marketing stuff, so I brought all that to say is that we didn't have much finances, and I'm like, okay, we're not going to sell records to make money.
Right.
The mixtapes were just starting and practically having to give them away at first. So I was like, all right, what else could I do that's relatable to this? And those same guys that I interned for that had that small record label, one of the guys from that crew, he started a marketing company and he was working for Priority Records. Okay. And again, you look at that, it's like a big deal. Like, yo, this guy's a rep for Priority Records. This is crazy. So I said, yo, let me help you out. And so he started, I was helping him out do Priority Records, but then he would see how much we promoted Crazy Hood, that we was putting up posters, passing out flyers. I mean, we was passing out flyers and putting up posters just for the name, just the brand. Wasn't even promoting anything. And he saw how much we were doing that. And he's like, yo, E, at one point he's like, I'm not gonna do the account anymore. I'm gonna pass it to you. Pass you the account.
Okay.
So boom, he passed me the account. And because he ended up moving to Orlando, he ended up managing that group Smiles and South Star. Remember them?
Yeah.
They had that hit record.
Yeah. That came out of what, like, 01?
Well, he left before that. He left
99?
before that, but he ended up like
99, 98.
Yeah, he probably left. He probably gave me the account before he left to Orlando, but that's what he ended up doing.
Okay.
Shout out to Alfonso. Mundi Dialect and Salient Records was the record label. Mundi Dialect was the group. And so he gives me that account, and then from then on, the Crazy Hood like hustle, and then having that account, it just became a word of mouth between like all these labels. They talk to each other. The market, like, who do you use out there? Yeah. Or if they see our work in the streets, yo, who's that team?
Yeah, sign them up.
So then I started getting every account, bro. I had Echo Clothing, I had Universal, I had Rockefeller, I had Def Jam. And all that was to fund, because I was basically putting that money into making the music, and at this point we're doing the Alliance group.
Okay.
So
Heck and Paul, right? Paul and Heck.
Paul, Heck, and Drain, and me as the DJ. So it's 4 of us as a group.
Okay.
And because Heck was in a different crew in high school, and a different crew at the time, but I knew he rhymed, and I loved the way he rhymed. Yeah. But he had a crew called Underworld Elements, and then Drain was from the crew Poetic Symbols, not yet assimilated into Crazy Hood. So Drain is still an affiliate.
Okay.
I was like, all right, I know they talented, those 2 guys. I was like, but we got nobody from Crazy Hood in this group. Yeah. So I was like, Paul, you know how to rap everybody's lyrics. You need to be a rapper. So I made him a rapper. And then I was the DJ of the group. And that's why it's called the Alliance. Because it was the alliance of these crews. But let me put a pinhole in that for a second. Go back to the meetings again. Because I always love the story. We used to meet, first we used to meet at my pops, when he moved out here for a second, he had a crib and he let me have a room where I started to put like my equipment in. And then that didn't work out, and I ended up going to I used to go to KIKO's all the time to make my mixtape covers and my flyers. We would just, print flyers, print our own mixtape covers. And I would be there all day long, all night long, on the computer, sometimes designing my own mixtape covers and then printing them out. And I said, well, I told the guys, let's start having the meetings at KIKO's, because we're there already. So we'd be in the parking lot or inside having our meeting. And one day the manager comes up to me and he's like, listen, man, you guys are scaring my patrons, man. They think it's a weekly gang meeting here. That's what he told us. He's like, but he knew what we was doing. He's like, I see what you're doing, man. I respect it. I know you guys are just trying to hustle, but it really is scaring everybody, and I'm losing customers because of you guys. I'm going to let you guys use the conference room for free, which is pretty expensive to use that conference room.
That's tight work.
And for about, I would say at least 2 years, we was using that conference room, which gave us another like sense of confidence and like professionalism. And we had the whiteboard and we had the pitcher of water. And
how often were you guys occupying the KIKO space?
Once a week.
Once a week.
Yeah, Wednesday
how long?
nights.
Like 4 or 5 hours, or
like 4 hours. Yeah.
Oh damn.
Yeah.
But that's going back to what you were saying earlier when you were like, well, I want to do this, but I don't have DJ equipment. When you just have the will in the and you want and you put the work in, things come to you. And doors open up. So that's tight, right?
And I had bodies, I had numbers, I had people. Yeah. So if you can actually organize those people and put all their resources, even if it's small, together, then it's something to work with. We got something to work with, and that's what really helped a lot, man. Having the people there backing it. But we lost people along the way because of the trying to be so disciplined and professional and military.
You weeded.
Of course, yeah.
Everybody not gonna stay in there for the long run. Like you said, But it sounds good because it sounds like you put a lot of work into your brand, once you made your mind up what you wanted to do. Right. And I think the leadership, see what you're showing is leadership. You showed leadership amongst a group of men, high school kids, trying to find their way. And you was able to take those young minds and develop them into what you have now. You know what I mean? So that takes a special individual in order to do something like that. You know what I mean? To plan, plot, and execute.
No, definitely, because we were even saying yesterday, for you to have a crew and the main members
30 years.
Still, for over 30 years. Keeping grown men with their own lives.
It's hard. It's not easy.
It's almost impossible.
Hard.
It's not easy, man.
So my hat, I take my hat off to that, and I respect that.
Appreciate it.
For sure. Yeah. You know what I mean?
But at the same time, even seeing EFN over the years, like his consistency. You know what I mean? Like, I never seen E say, no, we're not going to do it. Like I seen him talk, have plans, and have little meetings sometimes, and I'm watching him talking to the crew. He's like, "Well, we're gonna find a way to do it. Let's get in the car, let's go out to the beach, grab what we gotta grab, or put out what we gotta put out, and let's make this shit happen." Like he'll never there's no negotiation. Like once he set his mind on something, get the whole team involved. It's like that was out. You know what I mean? And everyone fell through with it. You know what I mean? So that was impressive, man. Even to this day, you still show that same leadership.
Thank you.
And you stay on top of the hustle, man.
Yeah, I mean it's different now because definitely we can't be militant kids. Like everybody we got grandfathers now in the crew. Like it's a different thing, but it's still.
But it's still there.
You got it. Yeah. It's all morale building. Like you just gotta change your ways and understand and respect everybody as adults.
Right.
You learn and grow.
Yeah. So
start going back from your original first mixtape. So now, do you?
Well, actually, what was the first mixtape that you actually put out in the street that got you a good buzz, and you're like, okay, yeah, now I see where I can go with this? Do you remember the volume or the volume of the mixtape?
So
which one?
First, I was doing a couple of mixtapes just for the crew, just
Right.
to, hey, what you guys think?
Just keep it moving.
And just to get feedback. And then I did a mixtape where I had, I believe it was Drain. It was either Drain or this other dude, Ivan, that ended up not being in the crew down the line, that they were good artists. And so they drew like a character and they made a cover for me. And I remember that was like one that I pressed up like maybe 100 of them and I gave them to outside of the crew, gave it to more people, got feedback. And then I started to notice that tape circulate a little bit more and get dubbed a little bit more. Like, okay, I did 2 of those.
Okay.
But then, I said, now I'm ready to do volume 1.
Okay.
And that's when I took it way more serious. And I went to this dubbing place down here in I think it was off Eureka.
Okay.
Right over there by US 1 Eureka.
184th,
Yeah, those warehouses over there.
Yeah.
There's a homie there, and I would make the tapes there, and I would get like, I don't know, in the beginning I would make a batch of maybe like 500 tapes, something like that.
Okay.
And one of the things I knew I wanted to do is make sure these tapes were in the flea markets. So I started getting them, just going to all the swap meets, all the flea markets, boom, get them in there from Homestead Flea Market all the way to USA, to US 1, to North Miami, wherever.
You guys are hitting Broward County too, right?
Yeah, everywhere. Everywhere we could get them in, barbershops, wherever. Yeah. And I was doing consignment. And I started someone came to me like, yo, they're bootlegging your tape in the flea market. I said, and a big smile came to my face. I was like, they bootlegging my tape?
I mean, you doing something right.
Yeah, you know what I'm saying? Like,
back then, that made you doing something
that
right.
was good.
Beginning of the journey too, yeah.
But it would be funny because they told me exactly who was bootlegging it, and I went to the store and it was on consignment there, and they was like, yeah, man, I must have seen like 10 tapes come out of there, but they bootlegs. And I left the guy like 5 tapes. And I go back to pick up my money. He's like, man, we ain't selling them, man. And give you your tape back. And I could have started talking shit, but I was like, man, I'm going to let it ride. I'll bring you 5 more next week or the next volume.
Right.
And the dude started cranking them out. And whatever. It was fine. And in the beginning, I just wanted the word out. I wanted it to be in every neighborhood. Right. That was the most important thing. But yeah, volume 1, man. And I just remember I started hearing like cars pass by and you'd hear my mixtape.
That got to be
that was crazy. But I would say the real game changer happened. So 2 things happened. Or first thing, we found out, again, going back to the idea that we got no connections. Still got no connections in the industry. I got my local record label guy that I'm working with, but they don't really have big connections. I'm Priority Records and all that, but I kind of went around the board in terms of timeline. So let's go back a little bit before I'm doing the marketing and promotion.
Okay.
Right? I hear about this convention coming to Miami called How Can I Be Down Convention.
Yeah, right.
And if you read this...
What year is this?
Like 94, right?
Okay.
So I graduated in 93. So all that time, our Bible in hip hop was the Source magazine.
Right.
So you would hear about Jack the Rapper and all these different conventions that were happening in hip hop that all the artists were at. And you're like, man, that'd be dope if I could go to this. So I hear about this thing coming in our backyard in Miami Beach. I'm like, man, this is it. This is coming to us.
Right.
And so I tell as many of the boys to sign up, and not everybody could afford it because you had to pay into to do it. Yeah. And so I think maybe a handful of us could afford it. Everybody put Crazy Hood in that. You had to apply and say Crazy Hood Productions is the name of your company. Okay. I made sure we pressed up the shirts. That's when we started wearing all the Crazy Hood shirts. Who's Crazy on the back. Okay. I was like, we're gonna go out there and in a show of force. And whoever wasn't officially in the convention still came and wore the shirts and was on the streets with us, right? And I had the mixtapes with me, and then I had everybody, at least not everybody, but like 3 people with tape recorders to record drops from artists.
Okay. So they just running up.
So then we running up on people, and this is like a sweet spot, golden era time of hip hop. Because it was still an era where all these artists that were coming into town that were big in hip hop were still they didn't leave like New York or their city often. So to come to Miami and be recognized was still like, wow, they were happy. It was still early in their careers and early in hip hop. So like you go up to a Busta Rhymes and he was, oh yeah, man, you want to drop for me? Right. Like you say I'm a Miami DJ, they're just happy a DJ from another town wants to fuck with them. And so everybody, you name it, Biggie, Big Pun, rest in peace. Biggie, rest in peace. Just saw everybody out there, man. Heavy D, rest in peace. Everybody, bro. We're in the streets and we're getting drops from everybody. and meeting these people and exchanging cards. I still got some of the business cards that I met and telling people, yeah, we're the guys in Miami. They would see the whole team wearing CHP shirts, passing out the mixtapes. We got the demo too that we also had from Poetic Symbols that we took to a demo clinic. Def Jam was doing a demo clinic where you went, you submitted, they listened to it, and then they either said, nah, we're not good, or we're going to keep it for another listening session back at the office. They said, yo, we're going to take you back to the office. Let's take it.
Okay.
So that was exciting. You know what I'm saying? Yeah. And so coming out of that situation, man, that was a game changer, man, because now we started to meet people in the industry.
Confidence.
They showing us love. You know, they want connections in Miami.
You got the name out now.
You got some of the name out. I got these drops, you know, that now I don't think too many other Miami DJs got drops like this. This is golden, these drops.
Right.
So then I start putting that in the intros of my mixtapes. And one of my missions was with every drop, they had to say either all three or one of these three things. They had to say, obviously, my name, EFN, Crazy Hood, but I wanted them to say Miami or Kendall. Because to me, it's like DJs will have drops, they just get their name. Yeah. But to get these guys to say Miami in the drop or Kendall, I'm like,
especially at that time,
man,
was like trying to make the name for
right. And then Kendall to me was just even more crazy because people were like Kendall, you know. But at the same time, my thing is I'm not gonna fake where we're from. We're from Kendall, so this is where I'm from. So I'm repping. So boom, we're putting on the mix, and then that mixtape coming out after that, game changer. And then what we were doing at that time too, to keep up with the music, because there's no way I could be getting the underground music that these DJs in New York and these other places were getting, because they were right there in the mecca of it. Like DJ Clue and Tony Touch. Yeah. So I would get just enough money for gas. A lot of times it was just me and Paul. I had a Toyota Tercel, and we'd drive up the East Coast. We'd stop in Atlanta and go to the record store. Actually, Atlanta was the first record store. There was the first record store outside of Miami to have my mixtapes for sale.
Shout out to Atlanta.
Yeah,
how's the mixtapes?
Oh man, what was the name of it? It was right on Orchard Street.
What part of Atlanta? Like, do you remember? Like, at least like
just Orchard Street? You know Orchard Street? Nah, man. They had a big Outcast or
you mean Peachtree Street?
Peachtree. That's what I meant. That's what I meant. That's what I meant. Peachtree.
Yeah, Orchard Street.
Yeah, my bad. Yo, memory fucked up. They had a big mural of Organized Noise.
Okay.
You know what I'm saying? And Outcast and stuff. And yeah, it was a dope ass record store they had there. And yeah, shout out to them because they were the first ones. I just went, pitched it, and they're like, yeah, we'll carry them. And then they carried my mixtape, and then we just drove up from there up to New York, New Jersey, and we went to the record stores, all the famous record stores in New York, and got all the white labels. And I connected with the DJs that worked at the record stores, and they would put me on like, yeah, this is some new shit buzzing, you know. I got like Jay-Z before he was popping, Capone Nori white label, like different things. And then I come back, and although it's on the mixtapes already in New York, because that's another thing, I went up there, got the mixtape, went to the record store, like, you got this, you got this, you got this, you got this. It took a minute, pre-internet really, for that stuff to trickle down here. So by the time I drove down, put it on the mixtape, at the very least, it matched the mixtape when it got here.
Gotcha.
It was the same music, same quality, but now you got a DJ from out here that you got drop saying Miami. Yeah. You know what I'm saying? And so now you can, like, I'm trying to build a local identity, like you get with this, you get with that, you know?
Nah, that's amazing because, you know, you could have chose to just be a good DJ.
Right.
Just DJ.
Right.
But, like, what you're doing is also planting seeds, not just for you and your crew, but also for the city.
Right.
You know, for the cells. So that's amazing, man. Like, that's a good, great story, man.
Yeah, and to go back to the demo, too, that demo, they ended up sending us a letter from Def Jam, which, again, back then, you just get a letter from Def Jam. I'm like, damn.
That's a big deal within itself.
But it was a letter telling us, unfortunately, we're not going to, move forward with this. But on that tape, and I'm not going to say it was stolen, and Drain, I think, produced some of it, and then our other homie produced some of it. But the samples that we used on that tape ended up being used by Mobb Deep after that, and by Big Pun, Not a Player, that sample.
Yeah.
Those both were on some Mobb Deep record and a Big Pun record, and I think another record. Those samples ended up being used in the future, and they were on that tape. So I don't know if a producer with a good ear said, "Oh man, I like those samples," you know? Maybe, you know, in my dream, in my mind, that's what happened.
Somebody snatched it. They heard it. They're like, "No, I think we can use this."
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Well, that's a great look, man. So when it comes to the mixtapes, right? Like, who was like your first, I guess, known artist at the time that actually came and supported the Crazy Hood mixtape in the early years while you was building the album?
Well, yeah,
CHP.
getting beyond the drops, the first person that really got on a mixtape and dropped bars, and I don't know if he's the first person, but he's definitely was the biggest at that time, was Nori. And that's where you get the relationship between me and Nori. So 97, myself and Eddie Giggs decided that we wanted to fill another void in the local scene and open up a hip hop clothing store.
Right.
So we opened up the store on Bird Road in 137 called Crazy Goods. And we had a record pool in there. We sold back then it was like RP55, Pure Players, Woo Wear, Echo Clothing, like all the hip hop brands at the time. Even Biggie had a brand called Brooklyn Mint that we sold.
I never knew that.
Yeah. And the Fugees had a brand. I forget the refugee gear or something like that.
What about Fubu? Nah?
Fubu had already kind of died down by that point. You know what I'm saying? But Echo was like the big player at the time, and we had Echo. And we sold like graffiti stuff and we sold mixtapes and we sold vinyl too. So at that time, because there wasn't a lot of hip hop stores, when an artist came into town, not like now where everything's promoted on the internet, they used to have to do things called in-stores. They would go to record stores usually and do signings to say that they're going to be performing somewhere. That's what they would do. It was like a part of their promo run.
Right.
So Nori was doing the promo run for the Capone and Noriega album. Capone was locked up, so he was doing it by himself. And it happens to be some dude that I knew from Sunset was a promoter working that event, and he brought Nori to Crazy Goods. Okay. And because Nori was also half Latino, it was always this thing, Latinos always, they find anybody, oh yeah, this guy, he's 1/4 Spanish, I fuck with him heavy. So, it's true, it's just fact. So, I was already fucking with him heavy, and even though he didn't know how to speak Spanish, he threw Spanish in there anyways. You know what I'm saying? So and CNN and The War Report was a big underground album and record. So he was already buzzing. He was already on my mixtapes, but he came down with his crew, and he was already buzzing as he was gonna do his solo project, but it hadn't happened yet. They bring him by the office. I used to have this. I still have the 4-track. I have a digital 4-track that I graduated from an analog 4-track, and then I had a digital 4-track that I would record freestyles and drops on. And I had it set up in my store. And I told Nori, I got some beats. I had a DMX beat and some other beat. And I said, can you drop some freestyles? And he's like, yeah, no doubt. And he did a freestyle, and we hit it off. He got along with us. His crew got along with my crew. I exchanged info with the manager. And to Nori's credit, I think what he was doing at the time was, I don't even know if he knew how smart he was, but he really took DJs and people in different cities under his wing and made them feel a part of his family, which I think was genius, because then now he had he was planting his seeds in every city, having these people who were going to bat from in every city, feeling they were part of his movement. Okay. And he did that with us. But the difference with me is that I'm one of those people that's once you open that door, I'm gonna keep coming back, respectfully, and be like, we're family, right? Right, we're family. So, and I had the contact to the manager, and then I had his contact, but Nori wouldn't always respond, so I would hit all, and then we knew the rest of the crew. So from that point on, I put out that mixtape with him freestyling, and once he was on the mixtape, or once I had his freestyle, better said, other artists that came into town, I'd be like Cannabis when he was popping big. Oh, I got Nori on this mix. Oh, you got Nori? Oh, I'll do it too. And then Capadonna from Wu-Tang. I got Nori and Cannabis. You got Nori? Yeah, I'll do it too. Right. So it was a snowball effect. And then I started to get Nori almost on every mixtape after that. And then I would, and we was definitely his street team without him having to pay us out here. I definitely returned the favor, but he was a game changer. And then he put out his solo. Yeah. And it was huge. Yeah. So now I got, I'm his guy in Miami. Right. And people would call me from New York, be like, he just shouted you out on Hot 97. He said, EFN and Crazy Hood. And, in that time, these little things were huge. Yeah. And then we did his first solo show in Miami. The Nori, first show by himself, boom. So that solidified our relationship. And then when Capone got out of prison, they hired me to put together the Capone home show. So I put together the CNN reunion show of Capone in Miami. It was during a convention too. I remember Wu-Tang was performing the same day. But they trusted me to do that.
Around what year is this? Like 98?
Well, the Nori, yeah, all of it is there. Like the Nori being on my mixtapes, him doing the show, that's 98, 99. And then the Capone home is like, yeah, like late 99, maybe 2000, something like that.
It was funny, like, he usually tells the story, but I'll let you tell the story.
Nah, go ahead, tell it.
Nah, because like around 98 is when I first like kind of heard of Capone Noriega. Matter of fact, my senior year in Killian, I got arrested for like some marijuana and shit, and I was bumping TONY. And that was literally in the headphones.
He went to jail with that shit.
Yeah. But he came in the room and I had the poster of the album cover on the wall.
Right.
And I was like, hey, you need to check these.
It wasn't that one.
Oh, okay, go ahead.
It was when because he was always a hip hop head, and me and him used to go back and forth on that shit, right? Kind of like how you and I used to go back. So when I walked into his room, he used to talk about like a whole bunch of hip hop. I mean, New York niggas. I'm like, man, he ain't talking about EVE or Ghetto Boys. I ain't trying to hear that shit. But I walked into the room, real talk. I swear to God, I remember he had Nori's album. Which one was it? Was
the War
Report?
Well, the Nori's album or the CNN?
No, the War Report.
The War
CNN,
Report.
yeah.
CNN. He had it on the floor. You know, like lit on the floor. I almost stepped on it and everything. So when I walked into the room, I saw it. I'm like, who are these boys? You know what I'm saying? And then he went and started breaking down. He's like, dang, CNN, you never heard of a boy? Like, you don't know nothing about a boy? Like, he checking me on
But it's funny how he acted like that, because we've had people on Drink Champs that you would have never thought were CNN fans, like a Trick Daddy or a Spice One or whatever. And all these people are like, we fucked with War Report, with NORE. It's like you didn't know that these people, everybody influenced each other, you know?
But that's how I knew of Nori, is that literally through him. You know, it's just crazy how the world works. And you go, like, I don't know, X amount of years later, we're sitting in the same room at your office, you know, in Kendall, you know, walking in. And Nori,
well, I mean, me and you have a history beyond all this.
You and I.
You know, before music and everything.
But I'm just saying, from the transition from like not knowing who CNN was really, and not knowing who Nori and Capone was, to him educate me on that, and then years later, you know, coming to your office and Nori's right there, live in color, playing poker with y'all, talking shit. You know what I mean? Yeah. So that was interesting. You know what I mean?
And that's around the time. I always kind of get the timeline messed. Like,
I'm terrible with timelines too, but it's all blurry.
When he told me, when I first the first time I heard of you, I was at his house and we were playing John Madden.
Yeah.
And I was in the game.
Yeah, and he was like, hey, this is my homeboy. It was like the All Madden team or something like that.
It was an Echo team.
Yeah.
The hip hop team.
Right.
I think he was like the Kimmy Turner or some shit.
I can't remember that.
But I was the punt returner. Right at the game, right when you start the game. Yeah.
That's how I let my guy. I chose a team that you was on, and I grabbed you as a player to return the punt or kick or some shit
like that.
And that's how we went into the spiel.
Like, that's my homeboy. EFN, his DJ. You know, he broke the whole thing down. I was like, okay, oh shit. So that was like my first, the first time I even heard of you was with that. You know what I mean?
On a video game and shit.
Right.
That was crazy.
And then I heard like around the 9/11 time, you had like a couple mix CDs I was out, and that's around the time where he was like, hey, when Nori's in Miami, he chill with, he does business with E. I was like, okay, shit, And so it went on.
And that's when I did Rap City too, because I filmed it.
Okay.
I filmed it on 9. We went to New York to film it, which actually ended up screwing when it came out. But I went to New York like 9/9, filmed it like 9/9, and came back 9/10, and woke up to 9/11. And I had just flown back from New York. I was just around the towers. And I flew back on American Airlines, and I was like, yo, this is crazy. And then it delayed the release of my episode by like 6 months. I thought it was like, oh, my big break. Imagine I was the first Florida DJ to ever be featured on Rap City. Wow. Yeah, with Big Tigger. Wow. The first Florida DJ. Wow. Right? And I filmed 2 episodes, and I was so hyped. I was like, man, this is gonna change everything, bro. Guys, I think we made it, this is it. And then 9/11, I was like, oh my God, man, because that's how it always goes. Like something happens.
That's even around the time, rest in peace, Uncle Al. He passed right before that.
Yep.
And when that 9/11 news came in, that just took everybody's attention, to that.
Yeah, no, that's crazy.
Yeah, it's wild.
It's crazy because you mentioned the BET. Like, let's talk about that. How did you even get to BET?
Rap City.
Rap City.
That's a good. I mean, I really don't even remember how that transpired, but.
All I from like the mixtapes era, did that
look,
eventually?
Man, I'm telling you, my creative way of getting my brand in front of people, like I was relentless, man. I used to do this thing called a fax campaign that I made this up. So when I tell you I started getting the business cards from the people at the convention, I went to How Can I Be Down came back, I think 2 more times we went to it. And, you know, I was even more established, more connected, and got more cards and stay connected with people. So what I started doing is grabbing the fax numbers of all these record labels and the people too, and even looking at magazines and finding the fax numbers, and I would make a flyer and I would just fax it like 10 times to each one, 10 times. I was like, someone's gonna see that fax turn on, go up to the thing, and it's just gonna just print 10 times. And it's gonna say DJ EFN, Crazy Hood, who's crazy? And they're gonna be like, what the fuck? And I remember meeting people later on in the convention like, you the motherfuckers been spamming us on the fax machine? I was like, that's me. So there was that. Then I remember I went to Atlanta. Like there's so many things that end up happening in your life that connect all these dots. But like one of them was I went to Atlanta. We went to perform at a show, I believe, in Atlanta, at some underground club out there, the Alliance. Okay. And then we were staying at a hotel, and then we was eating at the restaurant, the hotel, and the waitress, this young lady, shout out to her, Ebony Underwood. We hit it off. We started talking. You know, I'm telling her our dreams, our stories, what we doing, music. But well, it turns out that she's just not just this waitress there. She has a story too. Her dad was basically, I hope you don't mind me saying it this way, but I would say someone would have called him like the Suge Knight of his time. Okay. And he had a big role, if not the role, of putting together New Edition. Right?
That's a big role.
Yeah. Sure. And he ended up getting locked up because he was like the Suge Knight of his time. Yeah. And she was, she went through this whole thing to advocate to get him out of prison because of laws and all that stuff, whatever. But she ended up, thankfully, he got out not too long ago. She got him out? Yeah, not too long ago. He spent his whole life practicing in prison. But so that part is her background. And she had worked with, in some capacity, I forget the capacity, with T-Boz.
Okay, from TLC.
From TLC, and that's why part of why she was in Atlanta. Okay. She's originally from New York. And in New York, because of her dad and because of her dad's connection to music, she tried to do stuff in music or whatever. I forgot what she did, but she had vast connections. So I'm telling her, what I'm doing, my dreams, and then she kind of she kind of saw my vision and she saw my passion, and she's like, I could connect you with some people. And through her, she connected me with like dudes at the Source magazine, with DJ Enough in New York. So we do a trip to New York, and she takes us around. And then we go to the Source magazine, and I go with the crew. It's like 6 or 7 of us. One dude was like, "What is this? The Latin Wu-Tang Clan?" And we go up and shout out to Riggs Morales, who ended up working at Shady Records, but he was doing the unsigned hype. We meet him. We meet Carlito, who was the senior editor at the Source. Okay. Like I said, we don't meet all these people, and I'm leaving mixtapes, and they end up writing about us in the Source magazine. So we start buzzing. Right. I'm leaving all the mixtapes. They're leaving the demos, even everything. They see our crew. They see us with the T-shirts. They're like, okay. And then she's saying, like, these are the guys. And then we're already working with Nori, too. Right. So, you all this stuff snowballs for more opportunities. And somehow, some way, I get the call. And then I won the Justo Mixtape Award. Yeah. And I think that's 2002, though.
You won that twice, didn't you?
I was nominated twice, but I think I only won once. But before that, I was rest in peace of Justo, who passed away. Justo was a big advocate for mixtape DJs around the country, and he was always working with me. And I think through him and through a couple other folks, just the word got to BET, and I got the call to come do that, man.
That's how it worked.
Now, I'm going to kind of switch the subject a little bit, because I wanted to ask you, I know you had a few projects out, the Coming Home series. Yeah. Now, what sparked, and if you can explain, exactly what that is for people that don't know, but what sparked you to want to pursue the Coming Home?
And that's a big transition from going from music to now film and documentary film.
Right, and to kind of like, I don't want to dive too deep into this of how the idea came, but just kind of, I think it's always a good example to people going through anything. So during remember when the economy crashed in 2008? The biggest revenue bringer for me was the marketing and promotion company, right? And I was getting a lot of money, a lot of accounts. When the economy crashed, I lost all those dried up like from 1 month to the next. And all my revenue that I was making was gone. and I thought it was a wrap. I had the warehouse.
Yeah.
That was this huge overhead. And
Still got your crib.
I lived in an apartment. Yeah, I was paying my apartment and you know, funding all the endeavors. I wasn't really saving money, and I wasn't really paying taxes. So I got hit by the IRS, and all the money dried up, and like everything's going to shit. So in that craziness, I ended up moving into an apartment that was in foreclosure. That my mom was like, "Yo, I think this place is foreclosure." And where in the apartment complex she lived in, she's like, "Come move out." I felt like, "Nah, I ain't doing that." But then it got so bad, I'm like, "All right, I better do something." So I did a deal with the association. They get, you know, I paid a low fee to live in that apartment. I had to fix it up because of the foreclosure. And I'm in there just like, damn, man, it's just looking rough right now. But I don't ever show that side to anybody else. This is just me internally saying I'm fucked up. But never to the outside. Never. Poker face. Because it's all gonna pass.
And you're still running the organization. You're still running
running everything. I'm on rebuild mode. Like, how do I, you know, nobody really knows how bad it is but me.
Right.
But I'm like, all right. So in that craziness is when I somehow, some way come up with the idea that I want to go to Cuba to visit, you know, to just, if you're Cuban American, and for anybody that's Cuban American, they might understand this. You grow up, especially the parents that came during that era that my parents came after the revolution. They're so obviously anti-Castro for sure. You know, they're very right. A lot of them are right wing too, and they're so right wing about it. They're like, you don't go to Cuba, because if you go to Cuba and you spend $1, that means you're giving $1 to the communist regime. So you don't go to Cuba. It's like you don't go.
That's crazy.
And to the point where people have been scared because there was fanatical Cubans that if someone went to Cuba or even kind of said anything remotely nice about Cuba, these motherfuckers were terrorizing you. Wow. They were blowing bombs up, you know.
I mean, even when, you know, you got, people have family back there, how does that dynamic work?
It was awkward at one point. I mean, now people have, because it's just so many generations now, it's different. But back then it was a very right-wing, diehard ideology. And because they had gone through so much, leaving everything they had, you kind of understood it, you know? Right. But I remember saying to myself, like, man, like, I want to go see the island in the bubble that it's in, because it might be in the more or less kind of close to what my parents saw. And it may never be a free country for me to go. So I got to go some point, you know, and I want to go see it. So I kind of made the decision I want to go. A friend of mine that I had met had been going to Cuba and had been dealing with the hip hop artists in Cuba. He's like, yo, they got a dope hip hop scene. So I was like, oh man, even more reason to go, like connect with the hip hop scene in Cuba. And then Garcia, who's Cuban as well, he was studying film and he was doing film stuff. So I was like, man, let's just film this, even if it's just for us, for our families, for our kids. I didn't really tell my family, or my grandma at the time, like that's a no. My family wouldn't have been with it.
You didn't tell your mom either?
No, I only told my mom.
Okay.
I wanted to tell her where I was going. My mom was a little bit more open-minded. She was still like, I don't know if you should do this. But I did it. So boom, we go out there. We lived with a Cuban family. We call it a lo cubano. Like, we didn't go to a hotel. First of all, they don't really got that many nice hotels over there, but we didn't go to a hotel. They don't let Cubans into the hotel from the island. Wow. So we went and stayed with a family. They had a 2-floor house. They just all went upstairs, and we were all took the downstairs. They would, you know, paid them to make us breakfast. You know, the water was a trickle, a bucket to flush the toilet. You know, it was, you know, it is what it is. And AC was terrible. No AC. We were sweating every night. We couldn't sleep because it was hot as hell. And we connected with artists out there, and it was just like this life-changing moment, because I had been going through what I was going through financially, and I scraped up whatever money to do this trip. But now I'm seeing people who really got nothing.
Right.
They really got nothing. They got smiles on their faces. And on the hip hop side of things, they just have such a passion for the music. And them doing it reminded me of us doing it in the beginning when we started, like just doing it however you can. Like they made makeshift studios in their bathroom. They had hand-me-down computer equipment, old ass. Maybe the one producer had like the first MPC ever, and it was like it was open because he had to like always fix it. I remember recording in a studio, and crabs infested the room. And so we did that. We came back. We edited it. We did it for ourselves. We screened it, and people loved it, and they thought it was dope. And we showcased the music, and we tried to make it non-political. We just were. It was about the people connection. Yeah. And I was a fan of Anthony Bourdain.
Okay.
Yeah, for sure.
And what he was doing, I loved the way he did it. So he took what his profession was, which is food, and he went and explored the country through food. Mm-hmm. So I remember people telling me, man, I wish I could go back to my ancestry or my lineage like you did and see my roots. And I was like, well, maybe I could do that. You know, maybe like Anthony Bourdain will do it through hip hop. Right. And then that's when we started the Coming Home documentary series.
So that's very interesting because you know, a lot of people don't know that how big hip hop is international. I mean, now, you know, it's everywhere now.
Huge.
But when you think of a country like Cuba, like, you know, hip hop is known for people to express themselves. So how does that work? Like, as far as lyrical, you know,
with the communism,
right?
They run into a lot of issues, and a lot of the biggest artists were like, I wouldn't call them political artists, but they were like the public enemies for them there against the regime, because what the regime would do, which was smart, is that they would find the talented artists, and they saw that hip hop was bubbling as the big art form, and they would pluck them and say, you know what, we're gonna put you in a nice studio. Now you're gonna be signed to the label that's the government label, and we're gonna give you a tour. And you're gonna go to France, and you're gonna go outside the country and represent Cuba. And some people, because that's a dream come true, they get to finally eat good, they get to travel. They'll take it out. Some of them would do it and leave, and then stay in the country, you know, defect. But a lot of them would say lyrically what they felt about what was going on, and they would go to prison for it, go to jail. A lot of things were out. A lot of the movement. I don't know if you know that in the past couple of years they had riots in Cuba, and the big movement that was happening, youth movement, was all like led by a hip hop song, and hip hop was leading that movement. So yeah, it's dope, man. And I already knew hip hop was everywhere. So it was just a matter of going for myself and traveling and seeing, you know, experiencing hip hop in these countries. And I was using like the people in my crew as like the first, like, if you're from this country, we'll go to your country, you know, kind of, so you can have your coming home.
I know you have the Coming Home Peru,
right?
Boris,
right.
You know,
so that's why it's coming home, because it's either they're coming home, and then I made the catchphrase, wherever we find hip hop, we find home. So it could be coming home wherever we go.
So how many volumes?
So we went to Cuba, Haiti was the second one. No, Peru was the second one. Haiti was the third one. We went to Vietnam, which I went to the battlefield my dad fought on in the war, which was wild and very emotional.
Colombia too?
Colombia, we went to Colombia.
And that's for Paul, right?
Yeah, and we went to South Africa, which was the last one, and now I'm trying to do one next year. And we were the first original content to get a distribution deal on Revolt TV when they launched in 2013.
That's what's up.
We won right out the gate. The Coming Home Cuba we got picked up by a film festival. We won Best Documentary Film at the film festival, and I'm a first-time filmmaker.
That's dope.
You know,
that's hard to do too. The film.
Yeah. And then, you know, Garcia got really busy doing music videos, and he won, you know, an MTV award. So he went off. He didn't want to continue, you know, because he got busy. So I'm like, this is my passion. I really was really into it, and so I just took it upon myself and kind of directed it, because I felt like documentary filmmaking, the way we were doing it, there was no real directing. Yeah. So I'm like, you know, I'll just be the director and kind
of freestyle through.
Yeah, I mean, I knew what I wanted, and so I just started directing from Haiti on. Like he directed Cuba and Peru, and then from Haiti on, I directed him.
Now I want to talk about Coming Home Haiti. You know, no disrespect, that's my favorite documentary.
I mean, as it should be. You're Haitian.
Out of all the documentaries you have, but you know, I know you caught a lot of flack. Like, people were telling you, like, man, you going down to Haiti? Like, you know, you never been down there.
I didn't catch a lot of flack.
Well, as far as like people warning you, like, yo, you go down.
Well, Haitians were warning me.
Yeah,
those are the people. Haitians were the ones warning
me.
You
catching warnings.
Yeah.
When you went City Soleil,
which
everybody know about Haiti,
which we probably shouldn't have gone.
Huh?
We probably shouldn't have gone.
I mean, but you guys pulled it off.
We pulled it off, but if in retrospect, a Haitian in Haiti told me the reason why we shouldn't have gone is because if God forbid something would have happened, look at who's calling. God forbid something would have happened, it would have looked bad on Haiti. So he's like, you put yourself, and they explained it to me because we went into the hood, and the way that the hood is set up there is that each block has its own chief, they call it, like, leader.
Right.
And we went 4 or 5 blocks in, so they were like, yeah, you was cool with this chief, but the other chiefs would have been like, yo, we didn't give the green light, and they would have collapsed onto that chief and took us, hostage or whatever, kidnapped us. Yeah. That's what they were saying could have happened easily, because when we drove in like a white Mercedes Sprinter,
all eyes
in the middle of like the hood, and like they're like the minute we drove in, they're looking like, what the? And then I remember our driver, he tried to do a 3-point turn because I told him, and this was any hood we went to in different countries, we always did this. We said, turn the van around in case we got to get out quick, because somehow for some reason in most of these hoods we ended up in dead ends, So I'm like, nah, turn it around. And then he did this 3-point turn, and he like hit someone's like vase and broke it or something, or hit it or knocked it over, and then and then there was people on like roofs with like AK-47. It was wild, bro. It was wild, but it was dope. Like that experience was dope. It was nothing but love. Once we were on the ground and hanging out for a minute, we felt fine. But later on, Haitians themselves, artists, they were like, that was probably stupid.
And some of the artists that you visited in Haiti, like who were the artists?
The Body Cop Crew. Rock Fam, which were the 2 biggest. I don't know now, but they're like the Wu-Tangs individually, like 2 Wu-Tang clans over there, which unfortunately have also been hijacked by the political parties over there, and they use them, and their fans actually fight like violently during political seasons, and they wave like red and blue flags, and it's crazy. But they themselves, they're like the Wu-Tang, each of them, and they're dope. We met this one dude, Phantom. He's like the Tupac of Haiti, at least then he was, a lot of mystique around him when we met him, and
I saw a documentary about him.
Phantom,
not just him, but him and like a couple of other.
Yeah, I mean, it was dope, man. And the thing about Haiti too is like, okay, we go to Cuba, we speak Spanish, so if someone starts talking some shit, we could hear it's going. I don't speak Creole, so. If they start saying like we're gonna jack these dudes right now, I got no way to prepare myself.
Rich was there.
Rich, man, I wouldn't know that he maybe I guess. And we were with Mecca too. I guess so. I guess maybe the only place that we were really vulnerable was Vietnam. In Vietnam, we didn't speak no Vietnamese.
Yeah, Terry did as well.
Yeah. No, we did. We had some people, but I guess for me, just in terms of just because I'm doing the interviewing and stuff, like. I won't know if someone's like with it or not with it if they start saying something that I don't understand. Right. But like one thing that was dope about Haiti too in talking is that, and I said it in the film, the dude was talking to me and he was speaking in Creole. And we had, they were interpreting. But I told him, I was like, I don't understand you, but I understand everything you're saying because the sentiment, and the love of hip hop that we had, like that exchange was like, it was dope, man. It was real dope.
No, that's what's up.
So we talked about CHP, how it became an organization. We spoke about the mixtapes and also the awards and how you went through that great journey. We also covered his documentary films as well too, Coming Home documentary films, which I suggest that everybody check that out. Is that on Revolt? How could they see a documentary film?
You could I think the last one might still be on demand on Revolt.
On demand. Are they on Netflix? I'm just asking. I don't know.
No, they're not on Netflix. And a side note on that too, I also had done a brief deal with LL Cool J on Coming Home, where he really saw the vision for it.
Yeah, I remember.
Yeah, and he kind of and Rock the Bells, which is his company, they kind of came in as executive producers. Nothing really panned out of that partnership, but the fact that I had the opportunity to talk to LL Cool J and him see the vision and really be like, yo, I love this, man. Whatever I could do to help. That was dope. Just to have that situation. And Ice-T too was trying to hook me up, and he's like, "Yo, E, this is dope," and he connected me with some Hollywood people trying to do things. So yeah, shout out to Ice-T and LL Cool J.
Shout out to the both of them.
Right now, speaking of these artists like that, you had another project which I personally really enjoyed, but the Another Time album.
Yeah,
and the concept is amazing. Getting old school MCs and rappers with new, and on the same tracks, and that was a really nice, really nice project.
Thank you.
And I even remember seeing Snoop Dogg. He tweeted it,
because I have his album cover on it, and he was supposed to be on the project.
Okay.
And I was talking to his homeboy, and then he just he showed him the album cover, and it had I think Doggy Style's on it, and he just posted it. Yeah.
But you had a lot of artists on that album.
Like 56.
Like can you name some of the artists that actually
Redman, Bum B, Talib Kweli, Trick Daddy, Juvenile, Dead Prez, Inspector Deck, MOP, Denzel Curry, Gunplay. I mean, there's a lot of artists.
Like how did you get all these? How were you able to get all these artists to coordinate with you and jump on this album with you?
So Another Time was a dream project, and anybody, specifically mixtape DJs, I think all of us make mixtapes as if we were making a compilation album, like as if we were the A&R of a project.
Right.
So I feel like all mixtape DJs and all DJs, we have a knack for like A&Ring or producing a project like that. So it was always a dream of mine, but I never had the time nor the finances to put it together. But there was a time frame where I just felt like this is the right time to do it.
Yeah.
And still, a project like that, I still didn't have the finances to do if I was like really coming out of pocket for everything.
Okay.
But what happens is all the years I put in, all the time I put in, all those connections, all those relationships that I nurtured, being on the right side of things, it all culminated where people came to bat for me. You know what I'm saying? And I would say most of the people on there, they either didn't charge me or they charged me very little to be on it. And I just put, all my blood, sweat, and tears and all my experience into that project. And it was a dream, man. Like, I spoke to other people that have done similar projects, and they say it takes, to get that many artists on the same page, it takes like, a couple years to do it. And I pulled it off from beginning to pretty much release. It took 1 year. And I had a board, and I got it upstairs, and I'll show it to you guys.
Okay.
When we started, we started to conceptualize the project, and started to listen to, like, what I did is I listened to beats.
Yeah.
I picked the production out, and then I envisioned who do I want? Like, what's my dream track listing and feature? And I have a whiteboard upstairs where I started to write who I envisioned and who I wanted on the project. Out of that vision board, I would say we came about 90%
that's
on it. Yeah.
Which is good.
That's what's up.
Yeah.
Whenever you have a vision and you
so you mean it like
come to life, and it's like almost exactly how you see it.
Yeah, man.
So
when you're saying 90% of the vision, are you
90% of the artists that I envisioned on it. Yeah, 90% of the artists. And then, shout out to my boy Kether, aka KGB, who was with me hand in hand, like my A&R on the project, who helped me with everything too, and all the producers and obviously all the artists. But like I said, my whole experience, I always wanted, doing all this marketing and promotion for other people, I always was like, man, I just want to do it for myself. Yeah. And so I had my whole campaign laid out, and it was super independent, super shoestring budget. But for what I did, I remember a lot of people hit me up and they're like, man, I loved your marketing campaign. Everything, the way you did it. And we had the videos, we had all the graphics for everything. We did weekly releases on singles. And then I partnered up with a dope boutique record label that we did vinyl and cassette tapes and CDs on it. And we even did some limited edition remixes on 45, and just dope project, man.
That's great.
Yeah.
As far as artist feedback that participated on the album, did they reach out to you like, yo, E, I'm loving this shit?
Everybody, man. And I'm so lucky because a lot of times artists won't trust you that you're going to put them on a track with somebody else.
Yeah.
And, a lot of times I didn't tell them who they were going to be on. I just told them what the concept of the song was. Or sometimes, depending on the artist and my relationship with them, I would say, look, you're going to be the first person on the song. Would you maybe do the hook, and you kind of will help dictate the direction of the song. Mm-hmm. But usually I gave people, because I knew what I wanted for like the concept of the whole album and individual songs. Like, it had to be true to me. It had to like represent me as if I was the rapper on it. I wanted the whole album to represent me and Crazy Hood and my journey, and I think I accomplised that. Like, I had all elements. I had the West Coast, I had the South, I had the North. I had the underground artists, the mainstream. Like, I had everything on there.
Now, like for the hip hop heads that may be watching this episode with us, if they wanted to try to get to that album, how could they get to the album?
Yeah, it's on all the DSPs, Apple Music. Even if you search physicals on Amazon, you could buy vinyl, CD tape, still available.
So it's still accessible on the market.
Yeah. I mean, there's a lot of reselling of the because we limited physical releases.
Yeah.
So I've seen a lot of reselling, But yeah, you can still get some physicals, and then it's all over, Apple Music and Amazon Music.
Tight work.
Yeah.
Y'all go out there and check that out. For sure.
Spotify.
Another time,
man.
y'all search that, y'all look that up, y'all listen to it. You know what I mean? Guarantee you will truly be amazed. That's what's up. So I'm gonna kind of turn it up a little bit, take it to another.
You're gonna turn it up?
Turn it up a little bit. Turn up just a little bit. So E, man, coming off the Crazy Hood, how did you transition from Crazy Hood now to getting into Drink Champs?
Oh, I never transitioned from Crazy Hood to Drink Champs.
Well,
Crazy Hood is a part of Drink Champs.
No, true. So let me rephrase that question. How did you create, or how did you grow? How
was Drink Champs born, basically?
How was it born? Yeah. How did you give birth to it?
So part of the story goes back to Nori. Like, to give you the true story. So Nori does a reggaeton album. I don't know if you guys remember, he did a song Oye Mi Canto with Daddy Yankee, and it was big in that market.
Yeah.
But when he did it, it was ahead of its time for the English market. It was already bubbling in the Latin market, the reggaeton stuff. And so when he did that, it was successful in its own right, but he felt like the English market and the English hip hop market specifically kind of turned their back on him. They're like, "Oh, you're doing some other stuff now. You kind of left us. You left the building." And he the industry, he calls it hip hop purgatory. So he ends up moving to Miami. And he's like, "Yo, yeah, I'm gonna move to Miami. Need to get out of New York." And at one point, he ends up moving to Kendall to be close to our studio, the warehouse that we had.
Okay.
And he told me, because I was never into reggaeton. I have a newfound respect for it nowadays, the evolution of reggaeton and Latin music. But I was always this diehard hip hop head and always fighting for the respect of Latinos in the English hip hop market. So here comes this reggaeton. I'm like, it's not what I'm doing. You know what I'm saying? And I ain't doing that. So he knew that I wasn't really into it. Actually, when he told me about him doing it, I thought it was a joke. I thought he was joking. I actually laughed. There's a video of him doing a verse from it, and I was laughing.
Damn.
Which he never lets me live down. So he comes back and he says, "All right, E, you're the diehard hip hop head. Now bring me back to hip hop." And he comes to Miami. He moves close to the studio. I have him. I'm working with Hazardous Sounds a lot, so I pair him up with Hazardous Sounds to record records. I said, "You're gonna come to the studio. You're gonna record. We're gonna record freestyles. We're gonna send freestyles to Funk Flex and all these DJs." The first thing we did was have him do a joint over we looped the D Nice record. My Name is D Nice. That was one of my favorite records, And we did that, and he sent it to Flex. Flex played it immediately and dropped bombs and wheeled it back. And then the Double XL did an article on him, and then they did an article on me working with him. And then another magazine did an article on me working with him. And then it was just like, we were like, he calls it the Eric B. and Rakim. He called us that of podcasting, but we were just working together. He calls the modern day Eric B. and Rakim. That's what he said on a track that we did. So now he's working out of my studio religiously, and people are starting to come back around and working with Nori, and we're getting people back on his team in terms of what he's doing. And this homie of his that I ended up meeting was cool as hell, named Leo G, worked at XM Radio.
Okay.
Before it was Sirius XM.
Right.
XM and Sirius. And XM they had studios in DC, and you had to be in DC to actually put out a show through them.
Okay.
So he's like, "Yo, you guys want to do a show? EFN, you and Nori want to do a show." Like, he offered it to Nori. He's like, "But you could do an EFN in the studio." And you could, and then he, Nori would just put him with me. I was kind of like pseudo manager to Nori. If Nori had a show, I would go and I would be the DJ and the manager for him at the time, And so Nori was like, "Talk to EFN about this." And then he tells me, "Look, we don't usually let people record, remotely, but we'll let you guys record here. You can send it to us, and you guys can have a weekly show on XM Radio."
Okay.
I was like, "Dope." So boom, we started doing that out of the office, and the name of the show is Militainment Crazy Raw Radio. And I always laugh because Nori wanted to say that name. He made that name up because he wanted to use everybody's name. And I'm like, that's a long-ass name. But
it's stuck.
That's what it was, you know what I'm saying? So boom, Militainment Crazy Raw Radio. We did that for like 3 years. We did it after the merger, Sirius XM. We was on 66 Raw on XM, then we was on Hip Hop Nation on Sirius XM, and we was on Backspin on Sirius XM. And I think one other station we might have been on. And it was just a weekly show that we would do. We didn't make no money off of it. We did it purely for promotion. and we have fun doing it. And there's some clips that if you watch those clips, me and Nori intro the same way we intro Drink Champs. So much so that Nori says often in the intro of Drink Champs, Militant Crazy Raw Radio. Right? So we were doing that. And then boom, Nori and Pone do an album and they go tour in Europe, the album. I'm now managing a group called Mayday out of Miami.
Mayday.
We get a deal.
Shout out to Mayday.
We get a deal with Tech Nine,
Okay.
Strange Music, and they go on tour with Tech Nine. So I'm dealing with that. Nori goes on tour, and we both get really busy doing things that actually make us money.
Yeah.
So we stopped doing the show. But I was like, man, that was dope, man. You know, I wish we could find a way to do it. Same time, I got another homie, local, named Godfrey. He got a internet radio show turned podcast called Gamer Tag Radio. It's a gaming hip hop podcast.
Okay.
And he was this big advocate about like, you should podcast, like people should podcast. And he was like, yo, that thing you did with Nori, make it a podcast. You could do it whenever you want. Because that was the whole thing. We couldn't do it because we had to record and turn it in, specific time, day, and all this stuff. And there was like these constraints to the amount of time and all this stuff. So he's like, man, you can do whatever you want. You can do 10 minutes, you can do 10 hours. Like, don't matter. You can release it, you know, at midnight. You can release it whenever you want. And I was like, man, that sounds interesting. So I tell Nori, and he don't know what a podcast is. You know what I'm saying? And if he did, he's like, what is that? He's like, that's that internet nerd shit, you know? Hey, computer people will listen to that, right? And I'm like, yeah, but nah, you know, like, it's a thing. So it takes me a couple of years. I'm trying to convince him to do it. And then rest in peace, Combat Jack. You know who Combat Jack is? He's like a pioneer in the hip hop podcast game.
Yeah, I heard about it.
So Combat Jack, he was a part of a podcast distribution platform. And he offered Nori, he's like, yo, that thing you used to do with EFN, you guys should do it as a podcast. So Nori said, talk to EFN. I talked to the guys over there at the company. I can't, Loudspeakers Network, that's the name of the company.
Okay.
You got, at the time, I think Charlemagne was on there too, different people. So they even send me equipment. They send me like 2 mics and some stuff. And they're like, yo, here, boom. And just start recording. And I got the equipment, and then Nori he's not ready to do it. He still don't really get it. Yeah. He doesn't see the value in it. So I feel bad. I send the equipment back. And I'm like, yo, he ain't ready for it, man. Keep telling Nori. So few years, maybe, in my mind, it's 5 years. I don't know if it really was that long.
Damn,
but it felt like 5, yeah, because imagine, we were doing Sirius XM around the late 2000, like 9, 10, 12, until around 2012.
Okay.
And then after that is when I'm trying to convince him. We launched Drink Champs in 2016. So it took that long. And so again, there was a point where Nori's like, okay, I'm ready to do it again. Again, they send equipment, those guys. Nori doesn't come to the table to do it. Send it back. Nori ends up filming he ends up doing a podcast recording with Tack Stone. Remember Tack Stone?
Yeah. Tack Stone show, yeah. Podcast.
So, podcaster. Okay. And he was on Loudspeakers Network as well, if I'm not wrong.
Yeah.
And he was like a street dude.
Yeah.
So Nori, I feel, and I'm not speaking for him, but I feel that he saw himself in this like the street guy doing this podcast thing that he considered might have been like some nerd shit. Yeah. And he's like, okay, I could see myself doing this now. So he tells me, yo, I'm ready to do it now. And at that same exact time, my boy Godfrey's like, yo, I just got a deal for my podcast with CBS Radio. And Rap Radar was there too.
Okay. He's
like, you want me to make an introduction? And I tell Nori, and I'm like, yeah, but we got these other guys who've been trying to get us for years now. I feel bad. And he's like, yeah, but CBS sounds kind of big. You know, it does sound kind of big, you know? And it's all perception at this point. And so I said, all right. So I connect with CBS. They say, do 2 pilot episodes. They wasn't even ready just because it was Nori, you know? They was like, nah, we need to hear what this is going to sound like, 2 pilot episodes.
They wanted to see what it was going to be about before.
Right.
They went in with y'all.
So as we're getting to that point, now I'm going to have to go back now again because there's parallel things that happen. Okay. Going back to our office days, at the office, you know, like you said, we was gambling. You saw Nori playing poker. We gamble. We was drinking. We in the studio. We drinking. They smoking. If you couldn't handle your liquor, we would say, my crew would be like, yo, you're not a drink champ.
Right.
You know, oh, you ain't a drink champ. I'm a drink champ. You ain't a drink champ.
Yeah.
So much so that Nori was hearing it, that he did a song produced by The Alchemist called Drink Champ.
Oh, wow.
I'm a drink champ, drink. And at the end, he's like, you can't drink like my homie EFN, Bacardi King.
Oh, shit.
So
I didn't know he made a track off that.
Yeah, he made a track back then. Hearing that, because he was hearing it so much in the office, you could even, look up a hashtag and you'll see hashtags from me, Charlie, Drain, going back to 2012, 2010. I don't know, as far back as social media stuff.
Mm-hmm.
I always thought that was a dope like phrase. So I was big on buying .coms at that time. So I was like, yo, let me see if the .com for this is, if someone has it. DrinkChamp.com was available. And I said, well, might as well buy Drink Champs, the plural.
Yeah, grab them all.
I'm going to buy both of those.
So you bought the domains?
Bought the domains. I didn't know what they were going to be.
Mm-hmm.
I said it could be maybe a clothing line. Maybe it could be bars, a bar, Drink Champs bar, Drink Champ. I don't know. I don't know what it's going to be. And so, boom, I got that. Fast forward as we're moving along, and now this podcast thing between me and Nori is coming into fruition. I tell Nori, I said, yo, we should call it Drink Champs. And he's like, I don't know. He wasn't sure of it.
Mm-hmm.
But at the same time, I got my homie Scam, who's a legendary Miami artist.
Shout out to Scam.
From Carroll City.
For sure.
He did the stuff with Eminem, Tribe Called Quest. He rhymed with Eminem, all that stuff.
Yeah.
Amazing artist. He got an exhibition in the Miami in the Art of Hip Hop Museum.
Okay.
Museum of Graffiti over there in Wynwood.
Gotta check that out.
And I said, could you make a logo for me for this? And he made the iconic Drink Champs logo.
Yeah, that logo was gangster.
It's iconic now.
You know what's crazy? Not to stop you, but it was crazy because it goes Scam, like 5 years being around him, even through the Drink Champ shit. And then one day, me and Scam, I don't know what club we was in, whatever, but him and I was talking. He goes, somebody said something about he created the Drink Champs logo. So I was like, hey, Scam, I heard that you actually made the logo for E and Nori. And like, Scam, like, he's real, like, low key. He don't brag about shit. He does it, and either you know about it or you don't. That's on you, but you know what he does. He was like, very calm, like, yeah, I did that. I say, damn.
And he did the Another Time album cover.
He
did the Who's Crazy album. He made that character we call Norm. So the Garcia right there, the EFN, the Another Time, and the Who's Crazy.
So he did a lot of your artwork, a lot of your logos.
Man. He did.
Scam's heavily talented.
Heavy. So he made the logo.
Yeah.
And then we recorded. I had an office in the Viscane building in downtown. I had seen at that time there was like
23rd
Pitbull,
floor, right?
They had these office studios in apartment buildings in downtown, and I was like, man, I want to experience that. So at that time things were going good for me. I said, boom, let me get this, this apartment, and it was just office studio, and I already had a setup there because I was doing internet radio for a company called Dash Radio, and I had a show called OG Radio. I remember that. This table might have even been the table there. So there was tables, mics, the whole setup. We had it already set up. We had turntables too because we did mixes. And so I had the whole setup for a podcast already ready. So Nori invites the first night Kenny Anderson, the basketball player, legendary basketball. That's the first person we record. Mm-hmm. And then the next day, Fat Joe comes through.
Okay, yeah, all these years I thought Fat Joe was the first.
He was released first.
Oh, okay.
So those are the first two, but Kenny Anderson was the first one recorded. Right. And then I already knew, although everything we're doing is for an audio podcast, but I already had the vision for visuals. So I already had cameras from day one filming. Right, okay. But our release, this was all going to be audio to start with. So I give the pilot episodes to CBS, and they're like, we love this. This is, yes, let's do a deal. We fly to New York, and I remember Nori, and it's funny because we talked about this on Drink Champ, but this is why I say it's crazy because Nori was like hesitant to even sign the deal. He's like, you sign it. So the whole first deal for Drink Champs on CBS was Crazy Hood Productions.
Okay.
Solely solely signed. Of course, I'm not. We both own it, but it was Crazy Hood on paper that owned it. Yeah. And then also right when we're about to launch everything. And this is where I'm a little blurry, is if it was like right when we were recording the episodes or after. I was like, man, let's just call it Drink Champs, man. I got everything. I got the logo. I held down the Instagram, the Twitter.
Got the domain.
And then Nori, he's one of those people when things start moving, he's like, whatever, yeah, Drink Champs, let's do it, let's go, let's call it Drink Champs, Because if you look, the first episode, we barely had any bottle on the table, so it wasn't like we were going with the Drink Champs theme.
I think I had like a half of Heineken bottle.
Yeah.
Heineken would have a beer in it.
We was, like I think my bottle was in the kitchen where I would just go and pour and come back and drink, And then I remember I asked the people at CBS, I was like, look, what's a successful podcast? Like, what numbers should we hope for? And they're like, if you can get like like 30,000, maybe between 30 and 60,000 listens, you know, that's pretty good. That'll make you a couple $1,000s a month if you can get those kind of listens. Man, out the gate, Fat Joe, that episode I think did like 300,000.
Wow.
We immediately became like the #1 show on CBS radio. So much so it blew up so fast that they didn't know how to sell us to advertisers because they were using their regular radio advertising team to sell podcasts. And the podcast department was like the stepchild to the radio department. Yeah. So they was like, we don't know how to sell this drink champs. They talking crazy. Right. You know, Nori asking you how many abortions you had. Like they didn't know. And the shit, like the numbers yield a high cost for advertisement, but we're brand new. But we're a brand new show. So that, you know, because the way that they sold advertising, you had to buy it for like 3 months, 6 months at a time. Okay. They're like, we don't know if this is going to be around. These people are going to get canceled, you know? Right. So they couldn't sell us. And it took 6 months of being the #1 at that time for us to see a penny out of it. And we were reinvesting ourselves, and we would go to New York, we went to Vegas, we were recording where we could get it done. And then I would say that I think 6, maybe 4th to 5th, 6th, we had DMX, which was a crazy episode. Right. But that's the one that like kind of took us over the top, you know, where it's like we were here to stay. You know?
Yeah. You throw DMX in the mix with his energy.
And that we could do a documentary about that day of filming with him because it was a movie. Because he did not know at all what a podcast was. He's like, I don't know what the fuck we were about to do. You know, it was like he didn't know what we were doing.
But he went straight. He played along with it.
I mean, man, like I told you, we could make a documentary. We were recording on a computer on Pro Tools at the time, and Haz was out of town. So we had somebody else, and we were using some compressor too, and the computer crashed on us. And we were recording in the lobby of a hotel. We had to ask them to turn down the music in the hotel lobby. And then we got DMX outside now getting drunk with Nori, because everybody thought he was high on something. They drank a whole bottle of Hennessy to the head while they're waiting. Now, then the thing said it need to update the Pro Tools, and it said with the Wi-Fi from the lobby of this hotel, it was gonna take an hour. So, and then he didn't know what a podcast was, and he was ready to do a show. He was about to leave us. Nori had to keep him busy. It was a movie, man. It was a movie.
Wow, that's great. Y'all still pulled it off.
We pulled it off, you know. Wow. And, you know, unfortunately, people thought he looked sick in the episode, but he didn't know what it was, and he was kind of aggressive to the idea of what we were doing. In a way, he was doing it as a favor more to Nori, to be honest with you. He did a prayer on there that went viral. That prayer, right? So the next time around, we ended up doing an episode with him during quarantine. We called it Quarantine Champs. We were doing it all on Zoom.
Yeah, I remember. Yeah.
And I remember he was way more open to it because I think he really was a religious dude. Yeah. He liked that prayer went viral, and he's like, oh, this is the positive that came out of that. Right. So I think he was like appreciative of what we did, and that went viral.
That's tight. Wow.
Wow. Yeah, rest in peace. Yeah, rest in peace. When we had him, you know, that last time we had him on Drink Champs, it was such a pleasure. He was in such a good space that I never in a million years would have thought what happened would have happened.
And he looked comfortable too, being on set.
Comfortable. He was funny. He was healthy. He was saying some jokes. He was saying some, like, doing some philosophical stuff. You know, like it was really dope, man. The energy was great.
You know, it's crazy about Drink Champs is like what the people don't see when the cameras are not on is like the behind the scenes stuff, the interaction with you guys and the artists. And man, I mean, from my perception, seeing it from behind the scenes, like a lot of these artists are fairly down to earth. Like some of these cats remind you some of your homeboys. Yeah. You know what I mean? So it's a very dope, friendly, clean
and I think that's
the camera's off too.
That's what Drink Champs kind of how it changed the game because a lot of these artists, especially in hip hop, were apprehensive of doing media because they felt like they're going to like these journalists that are going to ask them like some like gotcha questions or try to get some juice, you know, some juicy clickbait out of them. Yeah. And here now they come, they know that Nori's an artist. Right. A lot of times they're familiar with Nori. Sometimes they're familiar with me. You know, I'm a DJ. He's an MC. We're not coming as journalists. Right. We're coming as people who care about the music, the culture, you know, and I always try to say I represent for the DJs, the street team guys that nobody ever shot out. You know, sometimes I've gotten into it with with some guests because I'm like, yo, you need to remember, you might not be in this position had it not been for these DJs and these street team kids who were out there sweating blood and tears,
Right.
going out there passing out your flyers before anybody knew who you were.
Real talk.
You know, and I represent
Real
them.
talk.
But I think that the authenticity and genuine, you know, in this that we bring to the table, I think people kind of got it, and then they see our homies around us. So when they come, they just see themselves in us, you know?
Yeah. And you can definitely feel that and see that.
And everyone can see it. I mean, that's why the show's been so successful.
Yeah.
Congratulations on
Thank
receiving the BET award for it. That's amazing.
That's crazy,
I mean,
bro.
when I saw that, I was like, wow, like my dog did.
Oh
Yeah.
man.
Did it, you know? I mean, you've been doing it, but it's like, you know, certain things, like, you know.
No, it felt good to do that for the crib. I remember coming out from that weekend, I went with the family to like a car show over there by Bayside by Coconut Grove, and I remember a bunch of people just coming up to me like, "Yo," like random ass people like, "Yo, you rep the crib," because you know I said Miami or whatever, and they were like, "Yo, you rep the crib," and I'm like, "All right, dope."
That was a good look. When I saw it for the first time, the clip, I was like, damn, like you can't even express the words, man. You know what I'm saying? You can't even express how proud I was to see you and the whole team up there. Like, man, especially when you seen it start from nothing,
Right.
and it developed it graduated into this beautiful thing that the world is watching. You know what I mean?
Which is about to be a decade old, which is insane.
And that's the crazy part about the time.
Next year's 10
timeline.
years.
Next year, 10 years.
From when you first.
You said
created
next year?
Yeah,
Next year's 10 years. Yeah, we're in 9 years right now. Next year in March we'll be starting the 10 years.
That's crazy because you know when I asked you the last time I asked you, man, how long Drink Champs been running? You told me it was like, we're at 7 years right now, about to go into 8 years.
Right.
That's the last time I asked you. And then you talking about now 10 years?
Yeah, bro, it's crazy, man.
And a lot of people may not know, you and Nori also received a proclamation.
No, we got an appreciation from
Thank
Miami-Dade County.
Nice.
Shout out to Commissioner Hardiman.
Yeah.
And then Crazy Hood, we were celebrating our 30 years as a crew last year.
Right.
And we got the keys to West Kendall, the key to Miami-Dade County from Hardiman as well. And we got a proclamation making in October 30th, Crazy Hood Day.
That's right.
Yeah.
And I mean, how does that feel? It's, you know, getting the recognition after all of the blood, sweat, and tears you put in.
Feels dope, man. It feels dope. But you know, you just more inspiration to keep going, doing different things, you know, and always, you know, just wanting to pivot into new things. I don't want to stay just in one place.
Right.
Keep making more opportunities. But the goal really is ultimately, man, for me personally, is to make opportunities for the crew, for my crew. You know what I'm saying? And the whole crew, like the Drink Champs crew as well. But my responsibility, Crazy Hood crew, who's been with me for 30 years, is to make sure that at the very least there's enough going around, enough happening, that there's opportunities and doors that open, that if they want to go in and take advantage of the opportunities, that they're there for them.
Right. That's what's up.
You know?
That's what's up.
And I'm seeing that too. I'm seeing that with the other crew members. You know, you got Paul with Sports Champs.
Yeah.
I saw Garcia now has his podcast.
And Garcia
on top of him doing the
film stuff. That's original.
Drain flicks.
Drain is killing it, bro.
Drain
The photography, doing a lot of stuff there.
Hazardous Sound, doing a lot of production.
Yeah, man.
Boris, that's another thing
Boris,
too. Boris
production
Beats in the
is crazy, man.
And Boris is the youngest one out of the camp.
Yeah.
You know, Boris came to a Crazy Hood, like what, 13?
He was like 13,
12
14. And he was Rich, you know, from Crazy Hood, his younger brother's friend that brought him to do street team stuff. Yeah. And then Rich's brother's like, I ain't doing this street team shit. And then and Boris stuck around. Yeah.
Nah, it's crazy. So it's kind of like you kept the whole squad and raised the whole team. You know what I mean?
Right.
No, that's incredible, man. And then once again, take your hats off. You know, we take our hats off to you, man. You know what I mean?
Thank you guys, man.
And
I mean, I've known you guys forever. I mean, come on, the Bandits. Come on, let's go. You know, you guys were on the mixtapes.
Yeah, we were. Actually, one, I think David Banner, the one David Banner.
It's been a few big. You put us on like 2 or 3 mixtapes.
Yeah.
You know, you definitely helped us out.
Yeah.
Definitely gave us a lot of information as far as the music business aspect.
Right.
And I know having a lot of conversations with you, even Tito and I sitting down with you, you broke down like, get your lawyer shit together.
Many conversations.
Get your paperwork together. Like you more specified a lot about the business aspect.
Yeah. And
educated us on that, which we took that with a grain of salt. Like we ran with that no matter what we did. You know, before we sign that, let's read it a couple of times and make sure shit makes sense. You know, if someone offered us, which Sony did, gave us that 360 contract, which was straight 360. But us reading it and going through it and declining it is because a lot of information you gave us from understanding how to read things and take your time with things and not just sign your life away.
Right.
So
yeah, so I mean, you know what? It's been a pleasure. You come. Well, actually, we're in your spot. Coming by, but
yeah, we
come
down
by
at Crazy
Black
Hood.
Label Exchange Spot.
Crazy Hood headquarters.
Thank
You know
y'all
what I
for
mean?
doing it here and accommodating me. I know y'all came to me to accommodate me, so thank you.
Nah, no problem at all,
for sure,
man.
for sure.
Keep doing your
Ah,
thing.
love y'all,
Much
man.
Love, man.
love you, bro. Appreciate
sure.
it. Thank you, man. Definitely. And let's keep going, man. Let's keep going. And
Let's drink this.
hey, man, break that shit open, man.
Relax.
Shit, about that lit.